a future of retail Asia with Jun and Imran, powered by Aimazing.
Welcome back to the Future of Retail Asia. My name is Imran.
And I'm Jun. Today we have Madalene See, an omni-channel marketing specialist with over 18 years of experience working with the renowned brands in APAC, Europe, and even in the Middle East. Welcome, Madalene.
Thank you very much for getting me on board, and I'm so glad to have this time with you guys.
Thanks, Madalene. So some of the brands she's worked with include Adidas, HP, Nokia, Bose, and on the APAC level, playing an active or lead role in go-to-market, sales and marketing initiatives, even designing in-store digital experiences and organizing the visual merchandising. She also has experience as an educator and consultant with Nanyang Polytechnic, Boston Consulting Group, and Leeton Academy.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel it's like very, very good to have you on our podcast because you are actually our first guest from the retail side. And we really, really want to show all our audience that like we want to cover the whole retail ecosystem, right? So not just for the landlords. Yeah. So I think with that, I think we want to we want like to know more about your experience on developing the digital experience in store. So can you share with us more about this?
Sure. I think these days from the past was just physical retail. I got to say that. But now we have all evolved into digital. So my recent one is in Bose when we had really good place in front of LV stores.
Wow.
And the best part, I think our team, we were very proud. We don't have to pay a rental. But I think there's few things that they wanted us to have is all the senses from the sight, the hear, the smell, the taste. But of course, Bose, we can't taste, right? So I can only do visual. So we had a launch of Bose frames, basically. And then when we were trying to get people engaged, we had a walking treadmill plus a LCD TV. But then as we actually get people experience, then we walk as if I'm down in the shopping aisle in US and Francisco. And then how do we enjoy that? And from that, then we get consumers to touch based. It's called on the right-hand side, you touch. How do I hear the sound of the frames? How do I actually answer the phone while I'm walking or in the gym? So I think that's the thing that we have envisioned. That's really not local tradition anymore. It's really getting digital. And then from there back end, then we can see people, how long they spend in answering those questions that we wanted.
Right. So you talk about really engaging consumers with all senses, multiple data points, as well as going digital, right? So I think in order for that to really happen, there has to be very clear visibility end-to-end with data. So as a retail marketer, where are the gaps do you think right now, right? So you say there's a traditional retail marketing and then there's the ideal. And where are these gaps you think that we should be looking at to plug up?
Good question. I think one thing is that as a retail marketing for many years, when on the brand side, we do have data that is actually found internally by ourselves, whether is it by our promoters or our partners or even our own investment, which means with the Google and everything, right? But the other flip side, we have to get data and support from the malls because I invest stores. For example, I have stores in Paragon and Funan, but where does traffic drives? I have no clue. Where does it do my consumer journey? I have no clue. I guess that's the thing that as a retail marketer, we do know what stores investment, when is the best time to drive the stores, opening, getting people to come to the stores to play around. But when is the right consumer journey? What target audience should I be focusing? And also how should I work with the malls to get customized marketing campaign to be more effective, to be more unique, more consumer journey to touch point, where I think Singapore, for example, all our malls to a certain extent look the same. Why should I come to this mall versus that? Yeah. And I think for us as a brand that I work with, we would love to work with the malls because our investment with the malls are 2 years, 3 years rental. But we need the yield. But how? I think the mall, we love to have its closer relationship on a more regular communication, apart from us as a brand to share marketing calendar, product launches.
Yes.
But where are we? How are we performing? And because the recent one that I did was in Paragon, we invested the digital screen.
Right.
We were wondering who touched, where, how. Has people actually touched that I'm a man, I'm a male, interested in consumer electronics products, that they click that button to say that Bose, that's my store that I wanted.
Right.
So I guess that's the data that as a retail marketing I need to actually affect better value add to my ROI and also present to my bosses
Yep.
that what should we be doing next.
I think this is very interesting. So we talk about omni-channel marketing and we look at the digital side or let's say online side, you would see this kind of data available that we share from the marketplaces like Amazon, Shopee into the retailer, right? So we know, okay, opening hour, peak hour, this is what happened with the marketplace and what happened with your brand and, how are we driving the uplift? And I think this would be very interesting if we can transfer that kind of data into the physical space, right? So I think that's what, for example, at Aimazing we do with the mall, right? So we can identify what's the real-time hourly trends, how are you comparing to the whole mall, how are you comparing to comparables, maybe together map out the customer journey, which brands are synergistic with yours in the mall. I think this would be very interesting. Would this be something like along the lines of what you are trying to plug in as a retail marketer, the gap of understanding the transactional data within the mall and the real-time nature of it?
I would say totally it is because I think you just now you spot on about the the e-com, right? So I think the e-com, that's where we actually get more data. For example, that mega campaign, why we actually in fact want to invest a lot during flash sales. We realize like Singapore, in the north part, 12 to 2 a.m., nobody sleeps. We're like, So that is the data that help us to actually affect them better do the investment, target the right product, and then yield out whether it's a traffic, whether it's ROI. I think that is something that we want this kind of data for the mall to be more relevant. Then I can work closely with the buyers and the mall that what kind of target you want. Whether do you want to have a Christmas purchase during that time, we can work together.
Yeah. So that's a very interesting point, right? So what you're saying is on an e-commerce marketplace level, we know, for example, from that midnight to 2 a.m. is an open secret in the industry that most of the day's revenue is done in that time. Right? And if we were able to go and to the retailer and say, hey, in the mall, most of the revenue is generated during these few hours, what it's saying is the brands will actually put in more budget.
Agree, totally. And I think that we can spot on to the right way of doing. For example, if I have a lot more ladies who shop in the afternoon, so isn't that my campaign should be more ladies like my Bose headphone with a rose gold? That to drive it, right? And also let's say on weekends, certain afternoon, there's a more couple or family coming. So I should then drive my store people to emphasize on the home entertainment because it's the home thing, right? So I think that's how we can then do a value add that why your mall is so unique versus people just go to the neighborhood malls as well.
I see. Well, I think very interesting. But just curious, how do you think that the mall management and the retailer can really come together to work more closely? Like just now you give a lot of example already, right? But like from there to ensure that we can create a win-win-win, right? Retailer, mall, and then especially for the consumer as well. Yeah.
I think one thing is that, basically I think mall are a bit more, to be very frank, they are probably a bit more traditional, or probably they are more conservative. They worried that we have this data, we share with somebody else. I think that is their reservation. But I think that they've forgotten the other part of the world is that these days, everybody bottom line is to get traffic, get their sales, and actually fact rather than currently now the mall is quiet. So we need to have that. And of course, also one thing is that with the right target information, then we're able to give them new experience. For example, that purchase it online, come to the store, and how do I utilize like Paragon membership, for example. There's a reason for people who want to continue the membership. Like free parking, clock points with Ion, for example. I guess that's a reason like why MBS has that kind of membership that I think we as a brands and consumers and even the mall has to work together as an omni-channel is literally customer as a center and have a seamless experience. I guess that's how then we have the data, we're able to get the right targeted way to then more unique why I should shop here. People will say, where's the best place to shop? At least my remember say, I remember that place is give me unique experience. That's something the data I can get. So I guess that's something as a retail marketer, we need to generate a win-win and actually convince the mall that we are not here to be the policeman to tell you what data they are, but for them to actually tell us what they have insights. And for brand, we can to see what we actually have invested with the agencies, whether it's with Google or whether is it with the TV screens or whatever, or out of the house, what kind of data. Then we can all sit down to map out a more customized or exclusive kind of activities and campaign for the mall itself.
I think very interesting because when we talk to a lot of landlord always shared about like actually a lot of retailer don't want to share the data with the landlord, right? But I think today is a totally different opposite. I think if we are only talking about like a landlord getting the data just for calculating the rental, there might have some like a gap there, right? But I think Madalene give a very, very good example. Is actually for the retailer, they're always looking at like, if I'm more willing to share the data with the mall, but how more can using this data to help me bring traffic, to help me to really understand my customer spending behavior, and then help me to easily count the marketing ROI.
And increase the bottom line at the end of the day.
Correct. I think also one thing is that they always ask us to pay money for certain space for bookings, like
Right.
the TV screen, right? For
Right.
example, if
Right.
they can give us the right data, as a brand, we are more willing to invest.
Right.
Now, as we don't have the data, I mean, I bosses will question me, is it worth investing? What's
Right.
my ROI?
Right.
If I have just another venue of visual, I should then push it to somewhere else to do the retargeting ads.
So like it has to be the investment into the right kind of data, into the right kind of spaces or opportunities and mechanisms that show the right kind of traffic and conversion at the end of the day.
Yes.
I think that's really interesting because I think that is really the problem that I think as a whole industry we need to solve. Right. So like from the I mean there are all sorts of players in the data space and tech space and everyone's saying, okay, how do we build the right kind of dashboards, the right kind of insights, the right kind of recommendation? I think the truth is in any mall or any marketplace, you're talking about millions of data points at any given day. Right. So I think it's really about understanding which are the use cases that are really, let's say, on a overlap basis, win-win-win basis. Hey, we focus on this 10 or this 5 or this 20, we can really add the bottom line collectively together. And I think that's not a straightforward answer to answer today by any single person. But I think that involves us coming together and sharing that data and saying, okay, how do we build from here? I think we want to ask a couple of questions around if you did have a retail manager in front of you and then you had a mall manager in front of you, right? I think today's context with COVID, crisis, lockdowns, reopens, I think it's quite an interesting concept. Together with the whole rise of e-commerce payments, I think it's a very interesting time and space where I think no one really knows what's going to happen. I think everyone, especially people who are listening in, will always ask, okay, where is the future, right? What should I be doing now with my time, my money, and my resources? So what would that be, right? So a retail manager, a mall manager, what would be your one piece of advice to each of them today?
I think one thing is that very good question because I was that position literally 18 months ago where COVID started, right? So I guess it's all of us, we were thinking, we'll just invest whatever the tradition. But when COVID started, digital and online accelerate ahead of our plan. They were all the while there, right? But then how do we actually coexist together? And how do we actually make sure that people comes back? So I guess there's this word that's about, we call the retail entertainment. I think if people wants to purchase online and pick up in the store, or the other vice versa, right? And people just wants experiential these days. Why, as a brand, we invest so much? $500,000. We want to actually drive experiential. How do we compete against the marketplace? Online and offline is different thing, but how do I drive the brand stickiness? And also, I think the recent one, basically, I think Apple launched the phone, right? Or probably the Apple Store thing. Just smart 24 hours ago, I was trying to actually find out on the Apple Watch.
Yeah.
But then we play around with the VR, focusing onto the phone, your hand and everything. I think that's how we say that, hey, I want to buy that. I want to go and explore that. So I guess from us is that how do we use the technology, the VR and AI to actually build in the experiential? And then for us as a brand, as a retail brand, we just have to do that kind of live streaming. How to then make sure that the live streaming is entertainment and probably gamification. I think the recent thing to get them entertained as well, not just watching at your hard sell. That at the mall itself is then, of course, as a mall, for us as a brand, how do we present them that we will still come back to you, right? So I guess is how do we collaborate that the easy pickup, safe payment. I think there's a lot of things. And actual fact spot on that we do at the store at that time, exactly probably a year ago from this time, is that we want to make sure that people feel comfortable coming to the store. We were that, exactly that kind of question, right? So we were all tidying up, making sure that the safe is there, safety is there, safe payment is there. And I think people's way of shopping has all changed. They are more worried about the virus than the journey, right? So as a brand itself, we also make sure that the way is safe is payment itself, collection. The journey is actually smooth and enjoyable, but it's not disruptive. So I guess that's something that as both sides we should actually in fact look into, that how can we ensure consumers come and shop, they feel safe and actually enjoy and they don't feel frustrated. Because I put myself as a consumer. At the time when they locked down some of the doors, consumers will get frustrated. How come I walk here, it take me extra 30 minutes to go to the stores?
Yeah.
Why it was not communicated clearly, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's something that if the mall has actually in fact demonstrated that we also take care of you, making your journey not so frustrated, they could actually in fact use the digital, push it to say that where is my first entrance to come in? Because there's a lot of called the retargeting ads that they can work with our brands to actually in fact ensure that people do come to the stores and not frustrated that, forget it, I can't find a door, I'll go somewhere else.
We had a recent conversation with one of the mall managers, and they were saying that people feel comforted when they smell the smell of Dettol. Right, so like even all these even little experiential things could really matter, especially in this time,
yes,
right? Yeah.
Totally spot on, because
Yeah.
our Bose table itself in the past was really on product, right?
Yeah.
So when you walk into the entrance, we do have that Dettol thing in front of you, and also when you walk into the entertainment room, they have a dispenser. So I guess that's something that we tell everybody we are safe and we're insured, and I guess it's something that as a customer myself, I put myself as a customer, I also want to walk in that I don't get swapped anytime I get virus. So I think that as both brands and the mall, we just have to get to tell customers one thing is we are safe to shop. I think it's the payment. I think the payment wise is very important. We are safe payment, and also educating that we are going to digital payment. I think that's the next things that we talk about in the retail. How do we then use the digital to actually in fact build the experience, build the cookies to come back to actually in fact shop more? Because a lot of people say, oh, online digital payment is very unsafe. So, but I think that's something that we that time work with is with Alipay itself, and also engage customers that they use Alipay, they come back the next time they can actually has a discount on the next headphone.
Right. So it's a return voucher.
It's an e-voucher, and we encourage them to actually in fact have online shopping. So I guess that's the time nobody actually in fact care about it. But I think these days we can actually encourage them the e-voucher, and also getting people that the QR code thing. The reason why I think 10 years ago, really I was trying to push on QR code. Nobody can tell me that, oh, QR code is not easy to use, it's very difficult. But I was saying that why today people are so embracing QR code? So I guess that the COVID has brought everything accelerated much faster, and people embracing it. As compared to a decade ago when I was just trying to convince you.
I would have to say that actually, personally, as a marketer, 5 years ago, I was talking to brands and said, who uses QR codes? and here we are today. So exactly, you're right. Some of these things we cannot see where it has gone.
Yeah, I think if you want to go into the shopping mall, you need to scan the QR code today, right?
Yes,
Everybody need to have a QR code scanner in their smartphone. Already.
I guess it's also one thing in the past when people wanted to get the product. So I guess we are all very traditional. We print the POSM, like the catalog and everything. But this at that time, exactly 10 years ago, I was asking them, if you want an ebook experience, right, you can actually scan the QR code, have the ebook flip as if you're doing an ebook.
Yeah.
But all my retailers or the owners of the mall saying that, sorry, they still like the book of the smell. But as a brand, we have to invest a lot more money. But in today's world, exactly about 2-3 years ago, I was actually in fact educating it. So Bose actually in fact we was a PDF file, but actually in fact we do QR code. So we kind of changed the mindset from the 20-30 pages book catalog, we become a PDF. And if my countries is like Indonesia, they are very more advanced. Surprisingly, the distributor, they actually in fact went to ebook. So they educate people from the ebook version, and they can upload onto the Tokopedia and Blibli online.
I just want to make sure that I'm very clear about your point, right? For the retailers, what you're saying is really putting the customer at the center and understanding their POV, their data points, and making it as seamless and as painless for them, right?
Yep.
What was your point about the malls again?
The malls has to be able to actually in fact communicate clearly that my place is safe.
Right.
I think that's very important, and also clear direction that safe payments or contactless.
Right.
I think that's something that we need to know, because I think that if the mall keep actually in fact telling us that they close this door, close that door, I think it's more frustrated. But they can actually use their technology to push it to consumers that we are safe more. Where can you find us, and where can you enter safely?
Understand.
I think today was very, very interesting because before that we will invite like a lot of more management people. They will always have this concern and worried about like will the retailer share their data with shopping mall, right? But I think today when we heard from you, like we always talking about like the experience, how we can actually create a better experience for the shopper, and then we really can create a win-win, right? So mall can using the data, aggregate data, and then using this data to give some insight to the retailer, and then the retailer can base on this insight to provide another good user experience to the shopper and the customers, right? And then the customers, because of this experience, they will come back to the mall again, right?
Yes.
So I think that will be a very, very interesting point because I think for the past few episodes, like everybody is worried about like, will the retailer willing to share the data, right? I think the answer now is yes, right? But you need to give some insight, give something back to the retailer.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and always our last question is, will the retail continue to be the king? Why or why not?
I would say that kind of question I think very spot on because I think about it. 10,000 years ago, Flintstone days are there. They have the barter trade. It never will go off. But I think is that retail will be evolved about more experiential. We have to drive a lot more experience rather than a physical bread and butter or probably just a pickup store, that kind of thing. But where it is. And then, of course, we have to drive the online and offline experience, which means brands or malls are able to scan the QR code or probably push it to do that collection and pick up and purchase. The reason I think is that we did test one in Indonesia. We love that experience. We were shocked that they enjoy it, which means the customers feel comfortable, which means they purchase and book the thing online and then come to the stores to test it and then they deliver to their house.
Right.
So I guess that's something that we did a test and then, but I think that in this time, we should actually in fact go beyond it about, experiential. People cannot come to the stores. How do they experience sound? How do they experience the scent? I think there's a lot of times that we do as a lady itself, right? We want to buy lipsticks and these days we cannot test anymore, right? How? So I guess it's a little bit of a digital world that I've tested myself that I'm like, oh, my lipstick like that, look this color. So I guess that's how we are enjoying it and we're also embracing it. I guess it's the only thing that how do we encourage the malls and the brands as well as our seniors actually in fact shop in this kind of comfort.
I think it does show from the data around the lockdowns and reopenings that when you do reopen, that's when the retail sales do bounce back to close to pre-COVID. Not yet,
Yes.
but I think that's where it's headed. But I think certainly there will be a large proportion of it that starts becoming more hybrid. Your click and
Yes.
collect,
Yes.
your hybrid experiences, you shop physically and then you buy online later. There are all these various experiences that start getting unlocked. But I think those are very, very insightful points. I think we have to close to this episode. But for those of you who have any questions for Madalene, of course, feel free to tag us in your post or comment in the post below and ask your questions, right? So we'll be happy to answer or even forward it to Madalene to have a conversation as well. So thanks again, Madalene, for coming down.
Thank you very much for hosting me. I enjoyed this session totally.
Thank you.
So feel free to reach out with any questions or comments. For those of you who are thinking about how do you enable experiences and evolve your retail ecosystem with data, of course, feel free to reach out to Aimazing as well. All our social media platforms, LinkedIn, of course, you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music, on Facebook or Insta. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Stay tuned for the next episode of The Future of Retail Asia.
How will retail change post-pandemic? Download the Future of Retail white paper from our website, aimazing.co.